The first drop of red paint hit the paper like a bomb. Mara didn't spill it by accident. She tilted the brush over Ethan's watercolor, a calm, almost bored precision in her movements. 3 days of careful work, shades of green trees, the shimmering lake outside our cabin, Ethan's tiny signature in the corner, vanished in a streak of crimson. "Kids need to learn the world doesn't care about their little doodles," Mara said, her voice flat, casual, yet sharp. "It's taking up space on the table." Everyone laughed. My mother, Lydia, forced a nervous chuckle. My uncle smirked. Ethan froze, small hands clutching the table, his face red with shock and hurt. I didn't yell. I didn't move. I just watched him. For a heartbeat, the room seemed to shrink. Ethan wasn't looking for comfort. He was trying to disappear, to shrink small enough that Mara's cruelty would pass over him. But I saw it. The same invisible chains I had worn for years were wrapping around him. Silence was survival. Pain was a joke, and the lesson Mara wanted him to learn was the exact one I had spent decades unlearning. I stepped closer, heart pounding, my mind racing. This wasn't just a ruined painting. This was inheritance of trauma, a silent legacy passed from one generation to the next, and I couldn't let that happen. The storm outside rattled the windows, mirroring the tension inside. One wrong move, one moment of hesitation, and Ethan would carry Mara's cruelty far beyond this cabin. But I wasn't going to let him. Not this time. Something had to change, and it was going to start right now. I sank into the edge of the chair, watching Mara's smirk spread across the room. She wasn't just messing with a painting. She was testing boundaries, showing power, reminding everyone who ruled here. The laughter that followed wasn't just cruel. It was ritual. Ethan learned quickly that the world rewarded the loud, punished the quiet, and I couldn't let him inherit that lesson. For a moment, my mind drifted back. Years of silenced anger, of swallowing tears to keep peace. I had worn those chains too, and now, in the way Ethan trembled, I saw the reflection of my younger self. The same fear, the same urge to disappear, the same careful compressing of body and soul to avoid making anyone uncomfortable. Mara turned to my mother, Lydia, expecting reinforcement, and she got it. Her support was a shield that allowed Mara's cruelty to grow. But I wasn't my mother. I wouldn't let Ethan pay the price of someone else's illusion of happiness. I took a deep breath, feeling the storm in the cabin mirror the storm inside me. Each heartbeat was loud, a warning drum. Act or watch Ethan shrink under the weight of Mara's control. I had to interrupt the cycle before it became permanent. The problem was, Mara thrived on attention. Confrontation had to be precise, calm, strategic, undeniable. Any hint of emotion could fuel her arrogance. I needed to channel every ounce of clarity, every memory of past pain, into one force: protection. Ethan's safety came first, and everything else, pride, fear, hesitation, would have to wait. I glanced at him. His little hands were still frozen, but his eyes flickered toward mine. He was waiting, silently, for someone to step in. I was ready. I stood, chair scraping against the wooden floor, the sound slicing through the laughter like a knife. Mara's smirk faltered. She hadn't expected me to move. Not this soon. Not this direct. "Enough," I said, my voice low, steady, carrying weight. Not anger, precision. "Ethan is done being your experiment." Her eyes narrowed. "Oh, come on, Maya. He's soft. I'm just teaching him how the world works." Her tone dripped with superiority, the kind that had silenced me as a child. But I didn't flinch. I moved closer to Ethan, placing myself between him and her, a human shield. Every instinct screamed to protect, to confront, to make her see the consequences. "No," I said again, firmer. "This ends now." Mara laughed, a sharp, mocking bark. What are you going to do? Stop me? You're always so dramatic. I didn't answer with words. I let my presence speak. Calm, unwavering, controlled. She realized quickly that this wasn't a negotiation. This wasn't a game she could win with arrogance and laughter. The room's energy shifted. The laughter dried in mouths. Lydia froze, panic flickering behind her eyes. Mara's confidence wavered, her control threatened by something she hadn't accounted for. Someone willing to stand without fear. I locked eyes with Ethan. He looked at me, a tiny flicker of hope lighting his face. I gave a subtle nod. I was here. I wasn't going anywhere. Not tonight. Not ever again when it came to him. Mara's smirk cracked. Her movements grew slower, less certain. She was used to everyone bending, apologizing, tiptoeing. Now someone wasn't, and for the first time she felt powerless. The storm outside rattled the windows again, louder this time, echoing the storm building inside the cabin. The battle lines were drawn, and there was no turning back. The cabin went silent, but not just quiet. It was thick, heavy, like the air itself was holding its breath. That's when Gregory, my father, finally moved. He wasn't loud, and he didn't storm in. He just stood at the head of the table, hands folded, face carved from stone. Years of watching, waiting, calculating. One look at Mara, one glance at Ethan, and you could feel the weight of decades pressing into the room. Enough, he said, his voice low, calm, but it carried a rumble that shook the walls. Mara's smirk faltered immediately. For the first time, her arrogance met resistance she couldn't charm away. You focused on tearing apart a 6-year-old's painting, Gregory continued, eyes cold steel, while missing the real lesson. Power without accountability is poison. Mara's lips twitched, trying to hide the fear she hadn't expected. Her rehearsed confidence cracked like ice underfoot. "It's just a painting," she started. Not just a painting, it's a pattern, a legacy of cruelty, and it stops now. His eyes flicked to me and Ethan. I won't let this continue in my family. Lydia, my mother, blinked rapidly, unsure how to respond. Mara's bravado weakened with every word. Her power had always been reinforced by our silence, by our avoidance. That silence was gone now. I watched Ethan relax slightly. He wasn't smiling yet, but his small hands unclenched. Hope sparked in his eyes, fragile but alive. Mara's confidence slipped further. She was a predator without her usual shields. The laughter, the nervous approval, the fear. None of it was there. Gregory didn't need to yell. He didn't need to threaten. His presence alone shifted the balance. The storm outside roared, but inside, the calm authority of Gregory, combined with my unwavering protection, made Mara's world tremble. She was no longer untouchable. Mara's smirk was gone. In its place was something sharper, nervous energy twitching at the edges. She tried to regain control, leaning back, flipping her hair, forcing that practiced arrogance like armor. "You can't just," she began, voice tight, eyes darting between Gregory and me. But I didn't give her an opening. I stepped forward, calm, measured, blocking her from Ethan. Every move deliberate, every word weighted. "I can," I said simply, "and I will." Gregory's gaze was unyielding, unflinching. "You've had power for too long, Mara. It's time to account for your actions." Her confidence faltered further. Mara was used to people flinching, apologizing, bending. She wasn't prepared for firm, calculated resistance. Every ounce of her arrogance was being chipped away. The room felt smaller, the air tighter, the storm outside echoing the tension inside. Ethan peeked from behind my side. His little chest rose and fell, calmer now. The fear in his eyes dimmed slightly. He realized someone was standing for him, and that changed everything. Mara's hands fidgeted. She attempted a laugh, sharp, nervous, but it rang hollow. "You're overreacting," she said, but the words lacked conviction. Her voice cracked on the last syllable, betraying the fear she didn't want anyone to see. I watched, silent but vigilant. Every micro-expression of hers told the story. She knew the tide had shifted. She wasn't untouchable anymore. Her control, once absolute, was slipping through her fingers. Gregory added quietly, almost conversationally, "Power isn't measured by destruction. It's measured by responsibility. You failed." The cabin hung in that silence, Mara shrinking into her own panic, Ethan breathing easier, and me, steady, realizing this was the first real moment of triumph, the first step in breaking the cycle. Mara's facade shattered completely. The practiced smirk, the sneer, the laughter, it all crumbled under the combined weight of Gregory's authority and my unwavering stance. Her hands shook, dropping the wine glass she had tried to pour earlier. The red liquid seeped across the table, a stark mirror of the chaos she'd caused. Mara's eyes widened, scanning the room for some sign of rescue, some sympathetic glance. But there was none. The laughter, the approval, the fear that had fueled her power, all gone. "You," she whispered, voice hoarse. "You can't." "Yes, I can," I interrupted, calm but firm. "And I already have. Ethan is safe now." Ethan blinked up at me, small shoulders finally relaxing. His eyes, wide with fear just minutes ago, softened with trust. He didn't have to hide anymore. The tension in his body melted slightly, a sigh barely audible but loaded with relief. Gregory stepped forward, his movements deliberate, precise. "You've spent too long believing your arrogance shields you from consequences. It doesn't. And tonight, you see what happens when the cycle ends." Mara swallowed hard, realizing her power had evaporated. She was exposed, stripped of control, forced to confront the damage she had caused. Her voice cracked as she tried to form words, but they faltered, weak and meaningless. I placed a gentle hand on Ethan's shoulder, guiding him away from the scene. The storm outside raged, but inside clarity settled. The balance had shifted. The predator was no longer untouchable. The cycle was broken, at least for tonight. The cabin was silent, but it wasn't oppressive. It was the kind of silence that comes after a storm, the calm after a battle. Mara's reign of intimidation had ended. Ethan could breathe, and for the first time in years, I could too. The storm outside had slowed to a steady rain. But inside, the cabin felt lighter, freer. Mara slumped into a chair, defeated. The arrogance and control she had wielded for years, utterly stripped away. She stared at the table, at the spilled wine, at Ethan's relieved smile, her world of dominance crumbling in slow motion. Gregory's eyes softened as he looked at me. "It's done," he said quietly. "The cycle is broken." Ethan's little hands reached for a brush, carefully touching the ruined watercolor. I can try again," he whispered, a small grin breaking through. His confidence was fragile but real, and I felt a swell of pride watching him take his first step toward feeling safe, toward reclaiming his space in the world. Mara tried to speak, to justify, to deflect, but her words were weak, trembling. Every excuse sounded hollow. She had lost more than a battle. She had lost her illusion of control. I knelt beside Ethan, letting him see that someone had his back. "You don't have to shrink anymore," I said softly. "No one gets to make you feel invisible again." Gregory walked over to Mara, his tone calm but cutting. "Actions have consequences," he said, his words final, leaving no room for denial. Mara's face was pale, realizing that the support she relied on for decades had evaporated, leaving her entirely accountable. The room fell into quiet, a calm, restorative silence. Ethan laughed softly, splashing a little paint on the table, and this time, nobody yelled, nobody mocked. The lesson had been learned. Power without accountability always collapses. And now, it's your turn. If you've ever had to stand up to someone who seemed untouchable, drop freedom in the comments. Let's remind each other that breaking the cycle isn't easy, but it's worth it. Share your story, your small victories, and let's lift each other up.